Hey guys, I'm Silky. Welcome back to the channel. Just wanted to make a quick video today going over helicopter trim and how it can make your life a lot easier. So first things first, we're going to go into our control settings. And I know some of you are thinking, well, I've already got trim set up for airplanes. Can I just use that? And the answer is no, because in Microsoft Flight Sim, helicopters actually have their own trim settings. So what you're going to want to do, like I said, go into your control options, make sure you click on whatever you're going to be using for trim. I happen to be using a Thrustmaster Warthog stick, so I'll click on that. And we'll go ahead and search for it. And this will bring up all of our trims. We're looking specifically for flight control surfaces. And under that, control trimming surfaces. And what you're looking for is increase rotor longitudinal trim, increase rotor lateral trim, and then decrease rotor longitudinal trim and decrease rotor lateral trim. So for increase rotor longitudinal trim, it's kind of counterintuitive, but you're going to want to have this, think of this like your nose up trim. So you want to, whenever you want to pull the nose of your helicopter up, you're going to pull back on your stick, right? So you want to kind of match that movement with your trim. So I've got that set to down, or in my mind back, on my trim hat. And then I've got the opposite for decrease longitudinal trim. So increase rotor longitudinal trim, nose up. Decrease rotor longitudinal trim, nose down. And then increase rotor lateral trim. So this is going to be our roll left and right. So the more I increase my lateral trim, or right on my trim hat, the more the aircraft will want to roll to the right without me putting input into it. And then the more I decrease my rotor lateral trim, the more my aircraft will want to roll to the left. Okay, now that we have our trim set up properly, where does this come into play? And the answer is you should always be trimming. So I know, as I kind of went over in my last video, which I'll leave a link for, when I pick up into a hover, I'm going to need left stick and back stick to counteract the drift the helicopter normally wants to do, going to the right and forward for this particular helicopter. So I'm going to go ahead and, so right now if you look at my control visualizer, I'm not touching my stick, I'm centered. I'm going to go ahead and put a few clicks of left trim in there, 3 or 4, that looks good, and 2 or 3 to the back as well. And I'm just doing that to anticipate that drift. So now let's pick up. And so trim isn't going to fly the aircraft for you, right? You're still going to have to put inputs, but it's going to make you fight the stick a lot less. So now I'm not quite having to find or go as far to find that sweet spot to keep myself in a stable stationary hover. I'm still having to make inputs, but I just don't have to go as far on the stick, and I don't have to put as much pressure. And this can be used in all aspects of flight, right? So now we're going forward, right? If I find myself having to put a lot of forward pressure to maintain the speed that I want, I go ahead and give it forward trim. And if it's rolling too much to the right still, give it a little bit more left. Right, so now the stick and the helicopter, it's kind of working with me instead of against me, right? I'm not having to fight the stick to get it to do what I want to do. And so the short answer is that there's no really kind of right or wrong here for trim. It all kind of depends on where and how you're flying and what you want the helicopter to do. Sometimes you might want to use a lot of trim, sometimes you might want to use none. And that reminds me, one control I forgot to go over. So if we go back to our control options here, go back to trim. One thing we forgot to make sure we have bound is rotor trim reset. And you definitely want to have that within easy reach. What that's going to do is completely neutralize whatever trim settings that you've changed. And this is important because sometimes, like especially for me, when I come in to approach a landing, I usually like to hit my rotor trim reset and take out all the trim that I've input, and then just quickly input that hover trim so that I have a nice and easy stable approach to a hover or straight to landing. So if you want to go ahead and make sure you have rotor trim reset bound as well, in addition to increase rotor longitudinal trim, increase rotor lateral trim, decrease rotor longitudinal trim, and decrease rotor lateral trim. So I really hope that helped, guys. I know that trim can be a bit of a tricky subject, but I tried to make that as clear and concise as possible. As always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you think I could do better in explaining this, please let me know. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.